All right, so this is how you check a diastasis on yourself if you're a man. It's a very similar check. It's the same thing basically that we do with men and women because your abdominals are pretty much the same. We're trying to check for how many fingers you can fit between the right and left side of your rectus abdominis and how deep you can press down. And what this is telling us is it's just a place to start, a measurement, an objective measurement to show you how much of a separation you have and how weak the connective tissue is. So as you go through the healing process, you can assess how things are getting better. Now, what's really important when you're checking yourself is that we don't want to be jabbing your fingers down into your tummy, all right? We want to use the pads of your fingers, not the tips of your fingers, the pads of your fingers, and you're going to be just pressing down and feeling for, we're going to lift our head, I'll show you how to do it. You're going to feel for that first little squeeze around your fingers. Now, if you have a bulge that sticks up, a lot of times you'll say, oh my gosh, I already know how big it is. I can see that bulge. Or if you lay down and you can kind of see the trench, you already feel like you know, and you may. But sometimes it's nice to get that activation of the rectus abdominis, that first activation to see really what we're working with. Sometimes the borders of your rectus abdominis are very firm and overdeveloped with some of those people that have been really working their core muscles, external core muscles more than the internal. So the borders are really easy to feel. In other situations, if your muscles have been really inactive, you've been in a lot of collapsed, weak postures or really disconnected from these muscles, then the borders can be really thin and difficult to feel. We do not expect you to be an expert. All right, palpation skills take practice and time and experience. But I do feel like it's important to not be afraid to check yourself and to self-evaluate what's going on so that you can monitor your progress. Now, in that, when we are going through the rehab process, and really in general, we don't like people to check their tummy over and over and over again, multiple times a day, multiple times a week. It's not going to make a difference. It's like standing on the scale every time you eat a meal. It's not worth it. I would rather you go several weeks before you reassess. Give your body some time to heal and some time to make some changes before you kind of press in there again, because the muscles, as the muscles come together, the connective tissue is rebuilding, and there's like little micro strands that are rebuilding, and we don't want to damage that healing process by repetitively checking. All right, so I'm going to have you lay down. We're going to have you lay down where you kind of slide down on one side and roll onto your back. Okay, and keep your feet up so that your pelvis and your rib cage feel like they're fairly aligned. Okay, then you're going to take the pads of your fingers and you're going to start right at your belly button. Okay, so right in your belly button, you're going to kind of press those fingers in. Now, sometimes you can already feel what's happening. You can already feel that trench. Sometimes you won't feel anything. A lot of times men have most of their diastasis above the belly button, not at the belly button and below, but there's a lot of different variations there. So check at the belly button first. You're going to press in and then just lift your tummy, your head up and feel. Now, if you can't feel the borders, you might need to put both hands there, or you might need to kind of move your fingers around and feel how many fingers kind of push in and how far. So if it's just one or two fingers, but there's a trench there and you can press in, it's usually about medium. But if you can put 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 fingers in that middle, then the connective tissue is going to sink down. It's going to be really deep. Sometimes it's very shallow. You just have a 1 or a 2 and it's just like a shallow swimming pool, not like the deep end. It's just good for you to understand what you're feeling. And then you're going to press about 3 fingers below and lift up again. Again, most of our men don't have a diastasis down there unless they've had some kind of surgery in their lower part of their tummy. Sometimes you do, but it's less common. Most of the men we see, it's right at the belly button or above. So 3 fingers above, you're going to check here too, lift up, and this is often where you feel that alien or that bulge, that football poking out. So you want to use 1 or 2 hands to feel how many fingers you can kind of fit in there. And sometimes If people feel like you have a pretty long torso and you feel like you need to check again, you can check right under your sternum. So your ribs come up and you have your sternum, you can check right there too, because sometimes we'll feel that separation that goes all the way to the top. You might feel it narrow here, a little wide here, a little narrow there. It may feel widest at the belly button and then kind of getting wide up. All those things, you're going to kind of feel those things. I'm going to have sit up for you guys. You're going to feel those things, and then you're going to write them down, because we want to have a beginning point. We want to, by what you're feeling, kind of right where you're starting out in this process, so that you know how much of a separation and you can see things getting better. One of the big things you're also going to want to document: do I have a bulge or a tent or a trench or anything like that? You also want to document if any of it's tender, if it feels tender. If any place is really tender to touch, like or sharp pain, or makes you nauseous to press on it, or is hot or discolored, those are all times you want to talk to your doctor and just make sure there's nothing else going on in your tummy. All right. If you feel a pulsing, sometimes the pulsing means that because the muscles are separated, you can feel your aorta, your abdominal aorta, and you can feel that pulsing. Some people have a higher pulse and a lower pulse. If that's a really bulgy pulsing, that's another thing to have your doctor look at too, just to make sure everything looks okay there. When we see clients that have kind of a wider diastasis at the top, it's almost all related to this upper body alignment and this rib thrusting and how we're breathing and how you're coughing and some of your posture stuff. When you're feeling it closer around the belly button, there's usually a lot of pushing out that you've been doing, a lot of straining or pushing out, and you may see that related to intestinal tract stuff and low back pain and some of those things. When you feel it lower in your tummy, kind of below the belly button, this might be really intestinal tract stuff, constipation, bearing down, hemorrhoids. You may have some prostate issues, and there could be a lot of disconnect going on. We're going to address all of these areas. We just like you to know that there's a big range of what you see, and wanting to write down what your specific situation is, so you know as we go through and we talk about specific symptoms and specific ways your body has been functioning and compensating, you're going to go, oh yeah, based on what I saw, my symptoms are and what I checked in my diastasis, that makes sense for me to make these things a priority. All right, so hopefully that helps you understand how to check yourself for a diastasis, and we'll probably have you check again halfway through the program. All right, thanks so much.